Dr. David Jubb.
Hey, mate. How you doing?
Hey. Amazing. Thank you.
It's really great to connect with everyone today. Yeah, I hope everybody listening out there and viewing our show is having a really good day. Yeah. But I reckon that we do things for thousands of years to come into the future, and nobody around here sort of really wants to be the king of the anthill for the day. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's so amazing, Lukey, because, gee, mate, if you go back 10,000 years in America here, there was more dogs, mate, than there is human beings. There was 20,000. There was several thousand. There were 7 times more dogs than there are human beings alive today, right, in America back then. But dogs really ruled quite a bit. On the continent, the wolves and things. But the dog, in the native tradition, that's the coyote, and the trickster in the medicine tradition. Yeah. But it's important the ability that we have to be able to see the flip to things. Are you there, mate?
You said the clips of things?
How's the sound? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's great. Just the one word I missed.
I'll do what I can to keep the sound right. But I've got a lawnmower noise outside. So that's happening from me. Hopefully, if you're listening to the show, you're not thinking somebody's mowing the lawn where you are there. But I've got a lot of things going on around me. And noise and things, so we have to include all of this as it's going on. But I was just saying that the coyote, is symbolic of the ability to see the flip to things.
The flip.
Yeah. Coyote sort of really was a trickster and really brought a lot to create harmony through playfulness and this sort of thing, Yeah. But anyway, the dog clan, they ruled, and people, if you remember looking at pictures, they could have had dogs' heads and stuff back then, They made symbolicness of this because it's sort of like thinking outside the box. Intelligence is the ability that we have to go beyond prefix set patterns of response to survive, So this is what intelligence is, But the dog clan really ruled part of the Atlantean colony, as we've been talking about here, and the Atlanteans, they were looked at more being expressed by the bird clan, and the natives talk about them more as the bird clan, and of course, they had bird emblems, and feathers and this sort of thing, and then, there's quite a bit of influence, of course, is occurring because of this copper that's being picked up here, in North America. And, of course, initially that was brought in sort of float stone and then eventually mined sort of metals and things, as is evidenced up there in Lake Superior. But it was being handed over for tens of thousands of tons, of soapstone. And that soapstone, was very valuable to the natives because, they could make vessels and extremely important sort of containers for food and food preparation. Yeah, so, people could be really sort of refining the things they're doing on food and food intake and that sort of thing, which sort of brings us together a lot to talk about food and life food. But anyway, amongst the longest-lived Indians happen to be the Adirondack Indians, and they lived a long time, and they, all the skeletons show they still have their teeth in their head, mate, by the age of 20. Whereas the corn and the bean eaters certainly didn't have any teeth in their head. They were toothless, pretty much by 20. But anyway, that's another story. But the Adirondack Indians, they were strict vegetarians, mate. Oh my God, and they really knew how to survive in the cold, mate. But anyway, Cloud Tutul, she told me that the Confederation really was a beautiful federation and a real democracy in this time, and that it was really functioning and guaranteed flow of goods and services, and this was really equivalent to people's creativity. But of course today, that's another story, But anyway, she said really that, we sort of have a recapitulative evolutionary component of ourselves where the brain stem could sort of short-circuit the frontal cortex. And in that sort of mode, she called that sort of lizard brain could have been a controlling factor, and people such sort of run the place or run themselves a bit from a cognitive dissidence. And, but anyway, that's another story. But it is true, that a lot of things sort of fit that, like Travis stock, which is really a self-financed hand above the government, no subsidy from other sources, and they just blur science and consultancy, mate, to propagandize information and control. Have you ever heard of Travis stock?
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, they're behind the dumbing down of the population, and all the social engineering policy, that the hand above the government is carrying out, mate, today. It really was only 1921 that Travis stock was created by the hand above the government's money to study young boys' mental and physical breaking points as soldiers, mate. They also looked into Price-Sunners. But Princess Bonaparte, I don't know if you've heard of her, have you? Princess Bonaparte. Oh, she sort of really did a lot of brown nosing with these people. But anyway, she was sort of real friendly with Freud. You've heard of him, haven't you, Freud?
Yes.
But, they offered Freud a bit of a free lunch, mate, after World War I. And, it was a nice, cozy relationship. They sort of manipulated, boys a bit more further down the prey of the path, to create an armed prostitute that would commit legalized sin. But anyway, that's sort of like the take of the medicine people as they look at what sort of is going on. But, because, of course, back then you had the indentured servants, and they were already, their bodies were sold, and they were shipping their monies home, to the families, but, they were keeping a lot of it. But they knew sort of really how to enslave. But anyway, Freud was, he was bought with a bit of a free lunch, that bloke. But anyway, boys have fallen further prey to create an armed prostitute that commit legalized sin, mate. Yeah. Because when you've got sort of a lizard brain, it only can rule by fear, and you need to sort of have a pool of slaves that can commit that legalized sin, see? So you're sort of living in a time of what's served out really is sort of more being served sort of destroy people, honest to God, rather than preserve a person, you know. And so more chemicals on the table, more heavy metals in the air, and dumbed down thank you with the 4 major networks. So anyway, it's all sort of done right now, so people, younger ones, they really can't have a family, you know. But Property Purpose is the training program the hand above the government sort of puts out, you know, and it's really a fascist, phantom, nation-state underminer. Seriously, you know, common purpose sort of clientele, you know, they're banks, police, schools, universities, city council people, hotels, hospitals, you know, you name it. But they've got to sort of agree to be sort of doing what's illegal to bargain, you know? And I don't know that is quite right, is it? But you've got public sentiment could really be influenced by sort of such private sort of interest. But if, like, for instance, you've only got 440 being put out, you know, and you've only got downscale stuff, you know, talk to the little ones, and monochromatic scale and things, you know, taught in the McDonaldization of educating that's going on. It's a sort of a educatingness, and Yeast sort of loves that. Yeast loves it. And that's the chief undertaker. See? Are you there, mate?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, good on you. But anyway, it's amazing because it's really sort of like a form of social engineering, you know. And I personally think that's really wrong, all of that social engineering, you know. They should really leave people alone, you know. But wherever you've got social engineering, then you've got a lot of pain and sufferedness, you know, especially like, you know, people often are not left alone and don't have family, and neither do they have mother and father and this sort of thing, nor do they have any ethne, you know. But it's sort of like a social engineering really is a form of eugenics. And that's just a sanitized sort of forces, isn't it? Sort of infiltrated, you know, camouflage in the plantation sort of thing. And that's the hand above the government's power. Sort of really, people could tell you if you look. Of course, it's sort of shown as going exponentially to be 5 times what's actually being spent on defence.
Wow.
Well, you know, I think you could really sort of ask, you know, what ideological loyalty is there really to you? I mean, the hand above the government, you know, we as a people, we give our right away to that person, you see, you know, and everything works while all of us give our rights away to that person that owns the growth of money supply themselves and just control the crap out of everything else, you know what I mean? See? But it's sort of a cognitive dissonance that's created that does that. But we could talk about that in another program, I don't know. But anyway, it's not that a real system that's supporting usury? It's really sort of based upon money's creation being given to a private person, when this money's creation really is rightfully everyone's. But really what happens, you know, to a republic, which is lovely, you know, but if you don't have constitutional money, well, what have you got? You don't have democracy. You've got democracy, really, you know, shamefully. but all contracts of money given to entertainers and judges, just paid by the hand above the government, follow the trail of money, you know. But popular culture is just a plot, don't you think, of conspiratorial body, just to target and insert sort of foreign agents just to facilitate social engineering, mate. You know what I mean? So time is equivalent to money. But anyway, that's the sort of what the Toltec take on all of this really is. But, you know, back then I was really very much sort of being reminded of time being equivalent to creativity, where people own the growth of the money supply themselves, as we did in these great chieftains in a time gone by, you see. But time being equal to creating, you know, is really an Atlantean tradition. And this seen by Toltec teaching of eye awareness, which at some point we can be talking a bit about this. But the Atlanteans, they really knew a lot about levitation by acoustical wave properties, you know, in moving these acoustical wave properties moving through a medium like stone that can make it sort of jump up and dance. You could see that cream just jumping up out of the cup, and first you could see hands and arms and a head and torso and, you know, legs and feet jumping up out, even jumping up out of the cup. That you could see the cream just put to an acoustical medium like a woofer. You could see that all of a sudden the cream that was still just all of a sudden having movement. If you can see that in your mind's eye, can you see it in your mind's eye, mate?
Yep.
Yes. So a cup just sort of fully coming to life and moving around because it was just before that sort of being still. But it sort of is done through acoustical levitation. The Atlanteans really had a deep, very insight into this. But if you've got two imposed conditions of standing waves just combining and interference and compression, then you've got scalar waves where nodes and antinodes is created in the eddies you've got there, you see, in space. So you've got these compression points and zones existing where flotation and anti-gravity exist, mate. And, you know, in another way, you could even apply a beam of this energy, as we're talking about, directed just by laser at an object. And this laser is really made up of these frequencies of the cream's atoms played back in on itself, and you've got a residuum vibration, which is very small, and you can manipulate that, and that you've got inverse gravity ability to be able to create, which the ancient Atlanteans really knew a lot about. And they moved huge stones by such science, you know, and they really had a deep insight into paramagnetic, diamagnetic energies and these sort of things, which, you know, people are really a bit in the Stone Age, you know, which we're sort of being held to a brain drain at the moment, you know, but that's sort of a bit of another story. But, you know, the Atlanteans really knew how to tap this residuum vibration, and they could do this with a medium subject, you know, to affect an anti-gravity condition. You can have this tune more to 432 hertz rather than 440, sort of respectively, and then this can have its more full overtones, you see, and over the other sort of, which really is only, this which we're talking about represents more than a third more than the natural range that would be available just with 8 overtones with a 440 hertz having been listened to up to this point in what you've selected. So, you know, you should really be tuning more into live music and learning really what live music more is about. But anyway, the Atlanteans really did know a lot about electrogravity and how this opens you up and, you know, opens listening and opens your viewing up much more, and you're getting your plasma being ionized more, so that the energy is being driven downward, and so you're feeling more elevated, mate. But you have like a shaman monk training, which this is, I don't want to give out too much secret training, but this should be interesting to people. But you should, people should really eventually get to be talking a bit more and have a program about anti-gravity. But this really is created in this fabric of space of counter-rotating fields existing by what you're doing, in the shaman monk tradition, which is this Atlantean tradition, which only, initiates should really be availed more of. But, some of this can be given out here in these programs enough, But, of course, this invisible wall, which you and I have talked about in the past, can be created. And, of course, Atlanteans knew a lot about the Earth being diamagnetic, of course, and it being the root of anti-gravity as a neutral zone, which we've talked a bit about. I don't know how much, you've shared with people privately around you, that this sort of really being between the north and the south, but that this is sort of applied, in this Nadi or, naval, area, in the floating, area. But this is applied, it's used to levitate, mate, and feel elevated. And then people do feel elevated as a result of this mastery. But each letter is energetically of a great deep potency of itself. And letters and words and sounds spoken, they do have a mathematical potency. And God, as we define this, in eye awareness, is unspeakable, of course, and only letters sort of representing that like a map, but we're doing what we can to have a map and have a flight craft manual that, can assist people run their living vessels. But anyway, language really used by Cloud, two children, and the Toltec here in the native tradition does go way back. But the Dogon also do, and they do teach this deeply held, root in words and sound, which as this is being spoken right now and you're hearing this, it's causing you to become more suddenly enlightened, mate.
1 minute left.
And with each chipped away part, which is really not original you're becoming more eye-aware. But you really should be tuning into shows on a regular basis and going back over this. If modern science is really wrong, but not really, of course, deeply. But written language really only has an apparent appearance before the pyramids. How could that be? What a load of rubbish. Toltec tradition is really ancient, and so is the Dogon. All right? So we've got to go way past Egypt and the Nile, mate, in the programming here. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, not all we say is perfect about the Dogon, but certainly it is suggested because they were sort of under the bit of an influence of the fertility cult at some time, but we could go into talking a bit about how this has influenced consciousness today.
That's it, mate.
Yeah, anyway, this is Dr. Jubb. This is Lukey, this is Universal Radio, man. Love you guys. Catch up with you in future show.
Love you, mate. Thank you.
Love you, mate. Hey, man. Love you guys. Catch up with you in future show.
Love you, mate. Thank you.
Love you, mate. Hey, man. Love you guys. Catch up with you in future show.